Hello everybody, MegaZardX here, back at it again to give y'all another very exciting collection reflection video where I take the time out just to go through my whole entire gaming library. It could be a game, could be a console, and it could be a limited edition. But today we're going to be talking about none other than Pokemon White, because oh my goodness gracious, when I talk about some favorite Pokemon generations, Gen 3, Gen 4, and Gen 5 are the outstanding ones where everybody and their mama can almost collectively agree that this is something like the peak that the Pokemon series happened to be. Yes, you had some cool stuff in Gen 6 and some Gen 7 before you get the little bit controversial stuff in Gen 8 though, but this right here was a I do mean a very ambitious game for it being a Nintendo DS game though. So in today's video, I'm just gonna go through and talk about everything that I can just call and reminisce on Pokemon White and explain why it's one of the top tier Pokemon games that are out there though. And I'm just talking about just only White. I'm not necessarily talking about White 2 though. I'm just gonna try to keep it confined within White because at least that one's the one that probably had the hardest punches up in there. And that's nothing to snuff about everything extra that Pokemon White 2 also happened to do as well though. So we might as well go ahead and jump up in this video. So if you hadn't already done so, make sure you're going to hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight up into this video. Pokemon White, and by extension you could also probably talk about this in the sense of Pokemon Black as well. Oh my goodness, these were some crazy games, and honestly I'm just thinking to myself, I don't even honestly know where to begin. I guess we'll talk about the Pokemon though, because this is the first time in a long time where you had a new generation of Pokemon come out and they crammed so many new Pokemon in this game that they didn't really let you go through and capture any of the older Pokemon. We're talking about the standard dex for the Unova region was literally over 150 Pokemon. We hadn't had that many as a brand new generation, I would say, since Generation 1. That's nothing to scoff at though. Everywhere you happen to turn around, whether it be in the middle of a city, whether it be a forest area, a desert area, whether you're in the sea or whatever, there was new Pokemon to be discovered all the stinking time. Even when you go out into the wild battles itself, you normally have traditional battles where it's like 1v1 with wild Pokemon. There's even dark green patches of grass where you're able to do double battles with random Pokemon and stuff. You had to be a little strategic at times where it's like, hey, if you wanted to capture one of the certain Pokemon up in there, you had to kill the other one first before you try to capture the other one. Now there was new mechanics such as like the dream mission stuff. And when I say Pokemon Black and White were ambitious, literally there's some things that you can do within like the website app when you boot up your computer and stuff. Do you remember that whole dream radar, or not necessarily dream radar, but like the dream whatever thing that was on that website thing? You were actually able to put Pokemon to sleep via like this one NPC that happened to live in one of those towns or whatever though, and you were able to do certain stuff in the dream world. That's how you were able to bring in berries to your game, because you couldn't naturally go through and pick berries off of trees like you were able to do in like Gen 3 or even Gen 4 though. It was a little odd how you had to do that though, and it was a little annoying, especially if you were trying to do stuff competitively though, but that was just the way how you had to kind of do things back then though. But the fact you were able to do crazy stuff like that and have interconnectivity just beyond standard Wi-Fi with that is crazy. And in terms of connectivity, I mean, obviously when you look down at that bottom screen, you have 3 different things that you could do. You can obviously do things with Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, play, battle, trade, whatever you want to do like that. You had the crazy IR thing, remember, where you can link up like 2 different DSs and had them like so close to where it's like, oh okay, then they'll pick off of each other, and then you can actually boot up and do battles just real quick like that. I remember doing that quite a bit with my brother back in the day, just having quick battles here and there though, just challenging him on a whim. And then obviously you had the traditional wireless stuff as well though. So yeah, there was a lot of cool stuff in terms of that. In terms of like legendary Pokemon, I think this is like the most that we had in quite some time. And I can even think back to like those Wi-Fi events, which honestly we don't really have a lot of those nowadays though, but like I remember getting like my Victini and stuff in that tower and literally having it in the Pokedex be like, what is it, it's registered as like Pokemon 000, like it wasn't considered like one I think number 1 was considered as Snivy, so that was a little interesting right there. And then I also remember certain events where it's like what Pokemon, what was it, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, they managed to give you like 3 legendary shiny dogs, but if you were able to take those and transfer them up into Generation 5 and take it to the forest, that's how you were actually able to go through and capture, I think it was Zorak at the time though, and I think you had to do something a little bit different to get Zora up in the game. My mind's slipping just a little bit up on that though, but I do remember certain cool events that you're able to do such as that. So with this being a Pokemon game, I obviously had to talk about the starters and stuff. And you know, if you see anything with my mascot, you can obviously tell that I really love myself some fire starters though. So obviously I have to start off with Hepig as one of my starters, in which case the firefighting types have almost been burned out at this point. Like we literally had Blaziken in the final form of Firefight. That was okay. Then you had Infernape. I really loved the heck out of him. He was like one of my favorite starters of all time. But then I was thinking we're going to go somewhere a little bit different from firefighting, but they ran it again and did it with Emboar. I don't know what was the Pokemon Company's fascination with firefighting types though, but I was like, gosh dang it, I need something different. I hate it when I got hit with psychic and flying type moves and that was super effective on me. I was like, we got to change some things up though. But in terms of overall designs, I think Samurott might have had the coolest design though, and Superior was also kind of cool as well, being a snake though. But Emboar, I mean, he was kind of sluggish. He was powerful but sluggish, so I didn't necessarily like in terms of like that speed stat of me going through and doing all these battles though. But speaking of battles, oh my goodness gracious, they managed to include some new stuff up in this game that we hadn't seen happen since this game. And I'm talking about triple battles and rotation battles, because oh my goodness gracious, I love the heck out of these, and I felt like they managed to use them just as much as what they possibly could without it being like super forced on you, kind of like how when double battles were introduced in what was it, back in Ruby Sapphire. You know, they would do them from time to time with the triple battles and the rotation battles, but they didn't really pop up a whole lot though. I love the heck out of that. You talking about strategy down to a T. I just don't understand why they hadn't brought that mess back, because especially with rotation battles, you can have one Pokemon out at one point, then rotate that to take the defenses and stuff at any given point. It's almost like playing a game of checkers and chess simultaneously at the same time. And at that point, you didn't really need to do actual switch outs with your Pokemon and completely lose a turn though, but you had 3 different Pokemon and all together like 12 different types of moves. It really made battles interesting and a little bit more somewhat balanced, because you never knew exactly how the outcome could play out though. So I really love the heck out of that mess. I really wish that Pokemon Company would bring triple battles, especially rotation battles, back in the mix though, because man, I was man, I had a lot of hours just doing those 2 types of battles alone though. My goodness. Now with those thoughts aside, I already talked about a lot of good stuff in terms of the mechanics, the new Pokemon and stuff that was involved up in this game, which Haxorus was still one of my favorite dragon types that come out of that game. That dude was hitting like a freaking truck, man. I was like, oh my gosh, especially given the ability rivalry, boost that attack damage up by 25% if it was a male versus a male, or if the Haxorus happened to be a female versus a female, and stuff like that though. Like, oh my goodness gracious though. But all those thoughts aside though, I hadn't even talked about the graphics of this game though, because it actually made quite a bit of a substantial leap in comparison to the Gen 4 games with Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, or even by extension also Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Because man, oh man, you had some moments up in this mess where you were literally going through there and you had some pseudo 3D-ish environments within a DS game that is really kind of meant for mostly 2D to a level or degree. One of the big cities that come to mind is Castelia City, because like literally you're walking down some of the streets and the city is revolving around you. You're going through like little alleyways and stuff like that. Even approaching into the city where you're over that big old sky bridge and stuff, and you see that camera like go up super high in the air and then like dive down low and then spread back out. Man, oh man, they were doing some stuff in terms of the graphics department for this little tiny old DS game. And at the time of when these games were almost coming out, or I guess that was technically what Pokemon White 2 and Black 2, when those games were almost coming out, technically the 3DS was already on the market at that point though, or it might have been You know, like these are some of like the last DS games we were having before transition over to the 3DS though, but they were taking advantage of everything possible that you can do within the DS in these couple of games. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like they knew what they were doing up in this, and all the sprite work was just a chef's kiss. Like there's a lot of iconic stuff, especially the way how they move and animate and stuff. Oh my goodness gracious. And while I was talking about battling and stuff like that, oh my goodness, that music when you happen to hit the red section with your HP bar thing, when it literally went like dana 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 dana. Oh my gosh, like every time I heard that stinking music, man, I had to pause for a second and had to jam out at least a little bit. I'm kind of sad and disappointed that that music has never happened to come back in later entries in terms of the series, but oh my gosh, they had a bopper with that one. Even though yes, you kind of lost the effect of the music, whatever happened to be playing, which Black and White has some really great music throughout the whole entire game from start to finish, especially that Elite Four music. Like oh my goodness, man, oh man, I can keep going on and on and on about Pokemon Black and White though, but like my experiences with Pokemon White are phenomenal, and man, oh man, this game doesn't drop a beat from start to finish though. Honestly, one of these days I need to go through and sit down and play through this game once again though, because like even Zekrom being a dragon electric legendary, having that black color scheme and stuff like that, oh man, that's some great stuff. And notice how I mentioned a lot of stuff within this game I hadn't even touched on the story. I felt like in terms of story, this is the richest, even though Gen 4 had a pretty good story up in it as well with Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina and all of that. This is probably the deepest story that you ever had up in this game. And even when you move from Pokemon Black and White and transition over to White 2 and Black 2, they literally called those new titles though, because the story was completely different from one game to the other one. But in terms of like having a collective overall experience, like there's a little bit of a time skip between both these two games, and you need to play this game right here if you really want to understand and get the most out of the next game over that happened to come right after this though. And I wish Pokemon games happen to do that a little bit more, or at least be a little bit more concerned about the story stuff, because like Trainer N, he was a really mysterious person. Gethys, that's the way how you pronounce that dude's name though. Man, oh man, he was a crazy old villain, and even what he was able to do, or with some of these other characters and what they do in the sequel game, man, oh man, I just keep going on and on about these games. And I'm trying to, you know, elaborate as much as I possibly can within a short period of time without just having it drag on and on. But if you played these games, you know exactly what I'm talking about in terms of the sense of exploration, all the crazy gym leaders and such, and then all the different battle mechanics, all the new stuff with the brand new Pokemon. This is like the game that had like one of the most highest amount of legendaries and stuff like that. And this was all brand new content, and we weren't necessarily pulling or relying on super old stuff as like even older Pokemon from the first 4 generations, not until I think you got into like the sequel games, unless you transfer a lot of those Pokemons up in the Black and White, or at least I think up until like when you beat the Elite Four, you really couldn't find anything beyond those first 150. And then after that, then it's when it really opens up and you get to all the older stuff though. But y'all gotta let me know down in the comment section down below what all that you think about Pokemon White, and by extension Pokemon Black, if you happen to play these games back in the day though, because you know, oh goodness, this game ambition is an understatement for these Gen 5 games, because they did everything and went further beyond in these games, even so much where you're able to do some stuff on the website app as well. Like, oh my goodness though. But that's gonna basically do it in terms of today's video though. So if you really like this, make sure you're gonna hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. So remember y'all, until our video I make next, see y'all.